Welcome to the Discovery Doc podcast, where we advocate for optimal wellness and reducing everyday toxic loads, no matter where life takes you. I'm Dr. Cece, doctor in nursing practice, self-proclaimed toxin tamer, and a crunchy mama.
I'm Anna Kate, a medical mystery overachiever and your discovery liaison. Join us on this exciting journey as we explore the world of holistic health, cutting-edge research, and practical solutions for a healthier life. Together, we'll navigate through the complexities of wellness, sharing valuable insights and expert advice.
Tune in to the Discovery Doc podcast. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and discover a whole new way of looking at your health.
Welcome back to the Discovery Doc podcast. I'm here with your host,
Dr. Cece, functional medicine nurse practitioner, self-proclaimed toxin tamer, and crunchy mama, and our co-host.
I'm Anna Kate, your medical mystery overachiever and discovery liaison. And we are here again with another mini-sode. In this one, we're going to talk about healing your gut health.
Yeah. So I had a question from someone that asked very specifically, quick tips to heal the gut besides food elimination. And I was just joking with Anna Kate, and I'm like, I'm about to burst the bubble. Now, let me validate this question though, because I understand I have a lot of patients who come to me after having, chronic GI issues, and they've taken out every single food and they're very restricted in their diet and they're miserable because that's not the only answer. They're still symptomatic and now they have no foods that they're eating. So I do understand where this question is coming from, because just taking food out does not mean you're eliminating the entire problem. Right. So it's a little more complicated than a question than presents to be, but I think that's a valid point. When you suffer from chronic GI issues, it's really important that if you have known triggers, like for example, Anna Kate and I both know that gluten is a big trigger for us in very different ways, but it's a big trigger. So if I'm going to spend the time, the energy, the money on trying to heal my gut, then it is counterintuitive to be supplying your body with a food that triggers you.
Right.
So it's not to say that it should be extremely, like, let's say you do a food sensitivity test, right? And it comes back with 100 foods that are positive. We really need to nitpick that and look at, okay, one, it's a food sensitivity. So what do those antibodies mean? They're different than food allergens, equally as important. What are your highest triggers? What do you know? Like, take away the labs. What do you know physically when you eat a food impacts you?
Right. How does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel? Any food that is not energizing you and bringing you some sort of benefit, and you either feel fatigued or more brain fog or joint pain or you're inflamed afterwards, I want you to listen to your body first over a piece of paper.
Yes.
And yes, unfortunately, take those foods out, but it might not look like then the 100 foods that you got back on a food sensitivity test that says that you have to take out all these things and you're left with a piece of broccoli, a mushroom, and a potato.
Right.
Right.
And if you have you already have eliminated foods and you're on a very limited food diet already because you've done this, there's also something called food fatigue.
Yes.
So I got food fatigue. For those of you that know my story, when I was back in bodybuilding and competing, I ate so many eggs, I became allergic to egg whites.
Yes.
So like every time I would eat egg whites, my palms would itch. Like nothing else, but every time I ate some, I feel like you feel.
That's so funny, because when I was like counting when I was in like the best shape and competing in CrossFit and just in the best shape, I was counting all my macros. I was eating so many eggs that I got eczema on the inner parts of my arms and just so itchy. And it was the eggs because I was eating them every single day.
Yeah. I was eating like a dozen and a half, like 18 eggs a day.
Yeah.
Just to get in the protein. And there was a point where I was like drinking them. I'm like, well, I don't miss
She was one of those.
Well, it's 10 o'clock at night and I still have not gotten all my protein
that's
in.
how
I've been eating all day long.
I was like, I need 40 grams of protein. Give me a bowl of egg whites.
Yeah. So anyway, there is that possibility that if you are on a limited variety diet, that you can introduce food fatigue just because that's what you eat all the time. So just be aware of that if you can switch in onto something else or give your body a break from that, that food fatigue will go away.
Yes. And to Anna Kate's point, there also, we develop, a lot of times we develop those food sensitivities because we eat the same foods over and over and over again. We're such creatures of habit. So yes, take out like the big triggers. Like maybe that is dairy and or gluten. Take out a big trigger, but then focus on food diversity. And that way you're not bringing on the same foods over and over and over again and worsening or increasing that sensitivity that you have. The more important factor is if you have taken out all these food and you're still having GI issues, then something else is going on. The food is not the answer. The food is just a minimal trigger that, yes, we want to take away to like press the reset button and allow your system to reset while we work on underlying things. That means that there's not an answer there. So that's where I then turn to stool tests and blood work and other things to be like, okay, what the heck is going on that's causing this problem? I know that's not what this Minnesota is about, but I need to put that in there just to emphasize that food elimination is not always the answer to why you're symptomatic. And you have to know the answer to why you're symptomatic before you can go heal your GI tract. Because the tools I use to heal a GI tract only work if I don't have massive amounts of candida in my gut, or I don't have massive amounts of H. pylori or opportunistic bacteria in my gut. So you can go and heal your gut all you want, but if there are these kind of bad boys overgrowing in your GI tract that you haven't hit and killed, then you won't feel the benefits of that GI healing either. So
if the frat party is still going on, you're never gonna feel good.
Exactly. And dumping a whole bunch of just healing supplements on top of that will do nothing. So we're going to assume in this situation, for the sake of the question, that we have identified the problem. We have gotten rid of the problem. And now we're at a point where we're like, okay, I'm sick of not being able to eat all these foods. What do I do from here? And that's when I tell patients, okay, let's start with the lower, if we have like food allergen or sensitivity tests, I start with the absolute lowest ones on there.
So low-hanging fruits.
Low-hanging fruits. Yep. Let's start to bring them back. But we're also going to do a really great healing protocol while you're bringing those low-hanging fruits back. We're saving the big triggers for a little bit later after we've done at least like 3-4 months of gut healing specifically, depending on the severity of the symptoms to start with. So
sounds doable.
What does that look like? I mean, it looks very different to someone doing it on their own versus a practitioner, but some products that I really like that I intermix a lot of the times. Mega IgG by Microbiome Labs. So a good dairy-free immunoglobulin that comes in and kind of seals the GI tract lining. It's also really awesome for immune health. I have it on my shelf all the time. Cautious with probiotics, because if you have not killed the problem, if there's a problem underlying that's going on and you just try to overload yourself with these awesome probiotics, some people can't tolerate it. And you can feel like garbage and you can have worsening symptoms, especially if you go to stronger probiotics like spore-based. So
is that like similar to a Herxheimer reaction?
Absolutely. So
is it a Herxheimer reaction?
It can be. So there's different types of probiotics. There are ones that feed our good bacteria, and then there's ones that are designed to kill the bad bacteria. So if you're overloading yourself with the ones that are designed, the spore-based, the stronger ones that are better at killing the bad bacteria and releasing endotoxins in our intestines, then yeah, you can absolutely herx from that. So caution with the probiotics depending on where you are. They're wonderful. A lot of people can tolerate them. But just know that if your gut is not ready for them, or you're super high histamine or something like that, and you throw a spore-based probiotic, you can feel a little crummy.
And that can happen. So you know what's happening, that it's not just a complete backtrack. It's just what you've asked your body to do.
Exactly.
So
just slow down. Exactly. There's 2 other products by Microbiome Labs that I like, MegaPre and MegaMucosa. They're very different. MegaPre is a prebiotic with non-digestible oligosaccharides. Say that 10 times, Anna Kate probably could. That basically increases the diversity of the microbiome and very selectively feeds the good bacteria. Basically, it just reinforces that the good bacteria are good defense walls is what it does without throwing an actual probiotic in there. It's kind of like the precursors.
Very cool.
So that's a nice gentle one. All of these I would recommend if you've never tried them or heard. The capsule, the recommended dose is pretty high. So start very low. Like some of these go up to 6 capsules. Do not start with 6 capsules. Go very low and slow. Do 1 for a couple weeks, then 2 for a couple weeks, etc. MegaMucosa is another one that I really like that helps to support that mucosal lining and the diversity in there and the short chain fatty acids, so helping with the acidity. These are important because when we have something in the GI tract that's been destroying our intestinal lining and causing more of what people love to call leaky gut, we need to heal that, right? But for the 75th time in 8 minutes, we cannot heal that if there are foreign invaders banging up against that wall. Yeah. So that's a very important aspect to this. But these are really good tools to just heal that lining. I love something like Glutamed. Who's Glutamed by? Numedica, I believe, but it has L-glutamine in it. It has arabigo-galactan. It has licorice root, aloe vera. It's just repairing. It's very healing for the GI wall and helps our cells just fuel our cells that create that mucosal lining. The last thing that I do is, and you would need a practitioner for this, is I use peptides.
Yep.
Depending on the patient, the severity. So like my Crohn's patients, IBS, IBD, there are really good peptides out there that can seal even the severity of things like ulcerative colitis. If we have ulcerations throughout the GI tract, these peptides can come in and really, really heal those up. So there's about 3 peptides that I rotate through for my very severe patients. And that the rotation can be for up to 6 months. And even some of them will pulse on and off, especially my severe, my patients who have been dealing with Crohn's for 40 years. And they come to me like right in a flare and we get rid of things. I mean, I have to keep them on those peptides for like a year or so afterwards. And then it's just kind of as needed if they're like, well, I'm going on vacation or I'm going, and I want to enjoy life a little bit and be less restrictive on.
Yeah, a little preventative.
Yeah, then we'll go in and out of it. But that's now reaching into kind of a next tier. So those are some awesome supplements that people can do safely at home. Without remaining on such a strict diet, but it is really important while you are trying to heal to continue to remove triggers that are extreme for you. And then once you've healed up that gut, then that's the appropriate timing to try to bring things back just like you would a baby. Yep. Very slowly, one by one, introduce 1 food a week that you've been avoiding for so long. And then the key is focusing on food diversity and just not eating those foods consistently.
So there is a method to the madness. While the number one, the first line of defense would be for you to change the choices that you make with the food that you're intaking. And then there's all these other additional additives and things that you can do to help repair and fortify the gut. So, but it is a combination of both. So back to her question of what can we do to heal the gut that's not a restrictive diet? It's kind of a little bit of both until you get it figured out. Also, it's just a process. Give yourself time.
Yeah, I always say it's for now. It's for now. And I never want patients being as restrictive on what they're intaking when they come to me as when they leave, right? There's absolutely a part that's like, okay, some people are true celiac, truly cannot have gluten, right? And so my expectation there, especially in our country, is not to be able to get you to a point where you can just eat all this gluten and not be affected by it. Now, can we get you to a point where if you are eating or importing, gluten from other gluten sources from other countries, or making your own sourdough or things like that, and you can tolerate that, that is my expectation.
Yes.
Not that I could go to Publix, grab a loaf of white bread off the shelf and not have you flare. So I always like to create expectations with my patients in that sense. But yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Just move forward to progress over perfection.
Exactly. Sure. We are totally changing gears with these next couple mini-sodes, so you guys stay tuned. We're gonna talk about some cool, healing modalities that I love that we have in our office. And yeah, until then, let's
Let's
discover
discover together.
together.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey of exploration and learning as much as we have. Before you go, we have a special request for you, our beloved discoverers. We'd be thrilled if you could show your support in a few easy steps. Step 1, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of discovery. Step 2, if you're listening via Apple Podcasts, please take a moment to rate and review our show. Your feedback means the world to us and helps others discover our podcast too. Step 3, whether you're on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, please share the Discovery Doc podcast with your friends, family, and social networks. It's the best way to spread the joy of discovery. And finally, don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Discovery Doc. Stay connected with us for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and so much more. Plus, for exclusive content and additional resources, be sure to check out our website at www.thediscoverydoc.com. And while you're there, if you have a burning question or a topic you'd like us to discuss on the show, simply let us know. Thank you, Discoverers, for being part of our incredible journey. Until next time, let's discover together. The content provided in this podcast provides general information and discussions on various topics related to health, wellness, and medical advancements. However, it is essential to understand that the content provided in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The hosts, guests, and contributors are individuals sharing their personal experiences, opinions, and knowledge in their respective fields. While they strive to provide accurate, up-to-date information, medical knowledge is constantly evolving, and the information presented in this podcast may not always reflect the most current research and medical guidelines. It is crucial to consult with a qualified healthcare professional or medical expert for specific medical concerns. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking medical treatment based on the information presented in this podcast. The Discovery Doc podcast encourages listeners to use their own judgment and discretion while implementing any suggestions, recommendations, or lifestyle changes discussed in this episode. Each individual's medical situation is unique and may work for one, may not be suitable or safe for another. The podcast hosts, guests, and contributors are not liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, or incidental damages or harm that may arise from listening or acting upon the information provided in this podcast. Listeners are responsible for their own health decisions and should exercise caution and seek professional guidance when necessary. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you have read, understood, and agreed to this medical disclaimer. If you have any questions or concerns about this medical disclaimer, please consult a qualified healthcare professional.